Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 195 of Let's Go Racing. Tyler Jones, Dominic Aragon here with you as we look back at another road course win. Shane Van Gisbergen, he gets the job done at Watkins Glen. We'll talk all about it coming up in just a bit. Also, we'll look ahead to the Cookout 400 this weekend at Richmond Raceway. Preview that race as we are getting very, very close to the start of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. Just a couple of races left to go. We'll break it all down. We'll get to our news and notes. We'll also have our mailbag segment at the end of today's show. Dominic joins me right now. Dom, let's start off with SVG. What a win. 11 seconds. And I know most people have complained, calling this a bad race. And we've heard the complaints that this car doesn't run well on road courses and all this. And what I would say, my counterpoint to that is, I thought there was some excitement in this race, but SVG's just that much better than everybody else that it takes away from this race being competitive and these guys putting on a show because they just can't hang with SVG. When everything goes right for him, when his team has a good car, the pit stops are on point, there's no mechanical failures, there's just nothing that you can do to stop this guy. And he had another incredible day. And, I think if you put it in the old Cup car, an Xfinity car, whatever it may be, I don't care. You're going to still have this same result of SVG having a dominating performance. I think that it was the lack of excitement was less about the car and the road racing product. It was more about just SVG dominating. What do you think?
I think the Cup guys got to get better at road course racing. I don't know how you do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you have all the resources and tools, and I don't think it's called SMT data anymore, but the same data that all the other teams have, so they can very well see what he's doing in every corner, in every part of the racetrack. He's just that very well disciplined in what he's able to do behind the wheel of a vehicle on a road course. We've seen it time and time again. It doesn't matter if it's an Xfinity car or a Cup car. We know he's going to be very fast at these road courses and get better on the ovals too. But these were supposed to be wild card races, Tyler. We have had six road courses. I'm sorry, five road courses this year, and four have been won by SVG. So much for being a wild card type thing. Would have thought he would have won at least one or two races, but would you have thought this deep into the season we'd be talking about a 4-win season for SVG? Because I didn't have that on my bingo card.
No, I thought there was a good chance he'd get multiple wins, but I didn't see four wins coming. Especially when you look at Dom, that he ended up running some races after the Chicago Street Course in his first year running Cup part time, and he didn't get victory lane again. Last year with Colleague, he'd never got to victory lane, although he had some close runs. But I think the big difference for him this year is he's running for one of the better teams in Trackhouse, a top half team in Cup. He's got the same crew chief, same crew, same equipment every single week. Once he got a handle on things and got comfortable, that was just a game changer. Because you think about last year, he was competing for wins, although he didn't win in Cup with Colleague. But everyone knows Colleague doesn't have the resources. They're not nearly as close as what Trackhouse is. And you put him in this Trackhouse situation with what Justin Marks is doing, and it just took him to a whole nother level.
It sure did. And I don't know if you had seen or caught SVG's post race comps, and I don't want to be misquoting it wrong, but more or less it said that last year when they finished second at Watkins Glen, that Trackhouse, if I understand correctly, had prepped the car, they delivered it to Colleague Racing, and then Colleague took care of it for the race weekend. They set it up how they needed to. But this time they got to do it the Trackhouse way. And that is proving time and time again just how good he is on the road course. We said it at the first win when he won a few weeks back at Mexico City, Tyler, that already that investment has paid off. This car is going to be in the playoffs. The lowest it's going to finish is 16th in points. You get the prize money. My understanding is, too, that the race winnings kind of pay out like I did in the 90s. You win races, you're entitled to more prize money the next season. So the car is set up to be in really good shape from a business standpoint in 2026 if all that stuff holds true. But now you had multiple wins. And I don't know the last time, Tyler. I have to go back and really sift through data to know when a rookie won 4 races, because Tony Stewart won 3 races in 1999. Jimmy Johnson won 3 races in 2002. I don't know if we've ever seen a rookie win 4 races in a single season. Very
Well,
impressive.
because it hasn't happened. He set the record. He set the rookie wins record at 4,
But even when you go
beating.
back to the 50s and 60s, I don't even think that data would matter too. You're right.
Yeah, he set the wins record. That was announced with 4, beating the record previously held by Tony Stewart and Jimmy Johnson with what he did there. But a couple of thoughts that I want to dive into in all this. First off, you hear the term, people are calling him a road course merchant. And I look at this, Dom, that Trackhouse team, I mentioned they're an upper tier team, but they haven't been a championship caliber team just yet. And I think at this stage, in where Trackhouse is at as developing as a team, signing SEG was brilliant. Because now what you are doing, I was hearing Kevin Harvick talk about this in his podcast this week, is with the number of road courses that we have on the schedule right now. I believe it's 6 this year. I think next year it goes down to you're guaranteeing that he's going to make the playoffs every single year, essentially. And that's a worthwhile investment. While he's improving on the ovals as well, both of those things there, sure, I think all of us would be shocked if SVG is ever a NASCAR Cup Series champion someday. If he is, by all means, more power to him, and I'll gladly admit I'm wrong. But with where they're at as a program, I think that's a gamble or a bet, whatever you want to call it, worth taking of saying like, hey, we'll go with this road course ace, this road course ringer of sorts, and we're guaranteed to get wins and get a playoff spot. I think that's a brilliant return on investment that they're getting.
Exactly. The business model, they have figured it out and they have found a way to work it to their advantage. And honestly, kudos to them. Celebration all around with Trackhouse Racing. They're going to have 2 cars in the playoffs because both their drivers have won races. But the fact that it's not just a one and done thing, the fact that he's won 4 races, you said it last week on the show, this road course would probably be a chance to really show these Cup guys, the Watkins Glen OG road course, as you called it, more of an opportunity to maybe level out the playing field, and we didn't see that this weekend. That 11-second gap really says how powerful SVG is on these road courses. I will say though, and we'll talk more about this later, but Ryan Blaney winning the pole and hanging how he did in the top 5, very impressive because we don't typically see Ryan Blaney as a road course racer. He seemed to give SVG a little bit of a run for his money early in the race, but it was SVG versus the field.
It was. And I saw a post from Corey LaJoy who said, one day I'm going to tell my grandkids that I outqualified SVG someday. That it's he's just on another level. And you're right. The Cup drivers got to play catch up. They got to get better. Not saying they can't, but they got a tough hill to climb. We saw Chase Elliott go on a run of winning these road course races in the old car. We saw Jeff Gordon go on a run, Tony Stewart, some of these others, but we haven't seen anything like this of what we're seeing right now. And I know there's more opportunities for him to get road course wins because we race more road courses than we ever have before. But I just haven't seen dominance like this. It's not just that he's winning, Dom, but he's dominating in the fashion. And we've seen guys that were road course specialists make the full time flip to Cup and have some success. Marcos Ambrose, Juan Pablo Montoya. We've seen some champions that were great road course racers like Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart. But I will be the first to tell you, I think that Shane Van Gisbergen is going to go down, if he isn't already, the greatest road course driver in the history of this sport.
And he's doing it in such an impressive era too. And to think he got a great qualifying run at his debut, starting third at the Chicago Street Race. You were there, Tyler. You know the hype that was going around. I think a lot of people were split on how he was going to do. Justin Marks was ahead of his time, but it really shows how one race can certainly make your career a lot better, or can change the trajectory of it. He finishes 12th in that race. I don't know if we're talking about SVG winning all these races, but what a time and time again statement and testament that SVG is on these road courses. He's not done by any stretch of the imagination. What I find interesting too, you guys know I love the wins list, and looking at how he has just climbed up that list this year. He's tied with guys like Alan Kulwicki, the 1992 NASCAR champion. Current driver Austin Dillon has 5 wins, but it's taken what 13, 12 years for Austin Dillon to be able to do that. SVG's done
I
that.
got a stat for you on that. I got a
Yeah,
stat for you on that, by the way. Austin Dillon, 5 wins in 430 races. SVG, 5 wins in 38 races.
and I believe he's the quickest to do it in NASCAR history to 5 wins. Quicker than Jeff Gordon, Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt. There is something to be said about those 5 wins.
There is. There is. And, he gets the extension. I think that as long as he continues to win on these road courses, it does for him, it almost doesn't even matter what he does in ovals. Even if Trackhouse feels like they've outgrown him, which I think, Ganassi reached that point with Juan Pablo when they brought in Kyle Larson, or, the Petty group did with Marcos Ambrose when he went back to supercars. Even if Trackhouse gets to that point where they feel like that they can be better off with SVG without SVG in a few years from now, I think that he'll have a full-time ride in the NASCAR Cup Series as long as he wants to, as long as he stays competitive and wins races. There's going to be a place for him in the Cup Series.
Especially knowing that you're going to have an instant contender, an instant threat at all these racetracks. And by the way, I got to backtrack a little bit there. Dan Gurney, 5 wins and 16 starts. That's probably never going to be broken, but I believe that is the all-time record. But nonetheless, what SVG is doing is very impressive. And I think I said on this show a few weeks back, Tyler, it would not surprise me when it's all said and done if the final win count of SVG is between 15 to 20 Cup Series wins when it's all said and done, especially if he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Now, here's another thing I'll bring up, Dom. You look at his Xfinity and Cup statistics. He has gotten better on the ovals too. I don't know if a win is necessarily coming anytime soon unless it's a plate track or fuel mileage race or something like that. But SVG, I think, is coming along just fine when it comes to his ovals efforts. Like, I think that, we've seen a lot worse oval drivers in that type of equipment. I think he's setting himself up to have a very solid career and to hold his own. And I mean, you look at, I think, one comparison that could be good for him if we're trying to say who could SVG become. I think he's in a league of his own when it comes to road courses. But I think on ovals, there's no reason to think he can't be like AJ Allmendinger. And if he's as good as what AJ is on ovals, I think Trackhouse would be thrilled.
So then at that point, you're talking double-digit top tens every season, maybe advancing through rounds of the playoffs. That year, Allmendinger made the playoffs in 14 and finished 11th in points. Ran very impressive, made the most out of that because we've seen how good he is not only on the road courses, but of course the ovals as well. And that's not without saying too. You look at the stat sheet in the beginning of the year where SVG was like the last car running. It seemed like it. Places like Homestead, Las Vegas, he was slow. Phoenix, he wrecked. And then you fast forward to the Coke 600, the race that arguably has the most attrition of the entire schedule. He finishes 14th on the lead lap, I might add, too. 25th at Nashville, 18th at Michigan on the lead lap. There is improvement there. 19th at Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. He was a lap down at Iowa the week before Watkins Glen in 31st, but the results are starting to get better, Tyler. Now, are they where they need to be where he advances out of round one of the playoffs? Maybe not, but he is running
He's going to have a
clean
lot of playoff
races,
points to his advantage.
and he's got the playoff points, and he's running clean races where maybe he does advance to the round of 12. We've seen it. You just need to run 3 clean races, and there's a good chance you're advancing.
Yeah. And then he's got another opportunity for another road course win at the Roval in that next round as well. So that'll be something to potentially monitor. And I made the AJ Allmendinger comparison. Although AJ's never won on an oval in Cup, Dom, he's got a number of oval wins in the Xfinity series. Like, I think SEG still wants to run Xfinity a decent amount. Like, I could very well see him getting to victory lane on an oval in the Xfinity series sometime soon.
The most recent AJ Allmendinger win on an oval was that Las Vegas win a few months back in October when the 16 team advanced to the championship for his contenders. We've seen him get it done. His win in Atlanta a few years back propelled him to that full-time ride. He was getting ready, I think, to give up his racing career, it seemed like. He was going to take on the NBC role. He goes out and wins, and it breathes new life into him. And at 43 years old, AJ Allmendinger runs really well on some of these ovals. Coke 600 was the same example this year with SVG, as well as places like Dover and Kansas. Seems like Allmendinger has run really well, especially Dover over the years. But nonetheless, the oval races, they're going to get better. Now, the real question is, Tyler, when it's all said and done and the final points are posted in November, does SVG finish 16th or does he finish ahead of some of these guys?
Yeah, I think he's going to finish ahead of some of them because he's got those playoff points to back him up. I think that's going to do him wonders in that sense. Let's go ahead and now talk about the playoff picture. Here's where things stack up now with the NASCAR playoff points. William Byron is your regular season points leader, 228 above the cutoff with 17 playoff points. Chase Elliott in second, 186 with 6 playoff points. Denny Hamlin, 147 above with 24 playoff points. Christopher Bell, 143 above with 17 playoff points. Kyle Larson, 143 above with 23 playoff points. Ryan Blaney, 126 above with 11 playoff points. Then you got Tyler Reddick, who, if he just starts this next race, I believe he clinches a spot in the playoffs. Correct, Dom? Isn't that right?
34th or better,
117.
and he essentially locks in, yes.
Okay. 117 above, 1 playoff point. Chase Briscoe, 90 above with 7 playoff points. He's got to win. He's in. Uh, Alex Bowman, 60 above with no playoff points. Chris Buescher, 34 above with -3 playoff points. And then Bubba Wallace with 7 playoff points. He's in. Joey Logano with 7 playoff points. He's in. Ross Chastain with 6 playoff points. He's in. Austin Cindric with 8 playoff points. He's in. Josh Berry with 6 playoff points. He's in. And then SVG with 22 playoff points, and he's in the field. So let's talk about the guys in the field right now. Dom, barring something catastrophic happening to William Byron, and there could be something that happens. You know, you never know with Richmond or a bad run at Daytona. This is William Byron's regular season title to lose.
It's appearing that way. And the 15 playoff points that'll come with that, the equivalent of winning 3 races, very much in control of William Byron. You have a nice top 10 showing at Richmond. I wouldn't be surprised, too, Tyler, if they elect for stage points if it comes to a situation where you have to race in a situation like that. Those 15 playoff points will matter a ton. Chase Elliott, of course, led the regular season points throughout the regular season, but man, it's going to take something catastrophic, a bad race at Richmond. And the most points you can make up outside of the Coke 600 is 60 points per race. And whoever's below that marker entering Daytona is going to come down to Byron and Alley, unless those two have a really bad race. And we see others step up like Hamlin or Bell or Larson. But it does feel like it's a William Byron regular season championship to lose.
Yes, it certainly seems that way. Tyler Reddick finishes 34th or better. He's in. So let's talk about the other two. Alex Bowman and Chris Buescher. Dom, I feel like with both of these guys, what's interesting is these 2 races we have left. I know Austin Dillon was kicked out of the playoff last year, because they ruled a violation, on what happened at the end of that race. But he very well could have won and could have stolen a playoff spot. We know that Daytona is the ultimate wild card. If you're Bowman or Chris Buescher here, I think you feel pretty good when it comes to your points situation, but you still got to be thinking back to your mind of all these guys that are capable of potentially stealing a win at one of these 2 tracks.
And we'll talk about that more in a minute too. But wow, a lot of guys that could still do that. But Alex Bowman and Chris Buescher, if no new winners happen and it's just a straight up points battle over the next couple of weeks, they're sitting in pretty good shape. Ryan Preece and Chris Buescher, we talked about it last week. Probably going to elect for stage points if it came down to it. And you did see that on Sunday in the Watkins Glen race. And I believe Chris Buescher stayed out in stage 2, collected 9 or 8 stage points. So those points do add up. Those are like your insurance that you're able to cash in on if you need. And Ryan Preece has looked good as ever. He's having a career year, Tyler, but it's still not going to be enough to make the playoffs outright. It looks like it's probably going to take somebody like him to have a win. But Alex Bowman and Chris Buescher, you're looking really good. You got to be feeling pretty decent. As long as there's no new winners, you have the skill set and you have the equipment to be able to go out and just outpoint everyone else and make it in on points if necessary. But of course, winning fixes everything.
So then you look on the outside. Ryan Preece 34 back, Kyle Busch 102 back, and then everyone else, Ty Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger, and the list goes on, must win to get in. Dom, I think with Preece and Busch though, 34 and 102, even though they're not mathematically out of it, they got to be focused on getting a win these next 2 weeks.
We saw that RCR speed at Richmond last year. RCR's got to be feeling good with Kyle Busch, who I believe is a six-time winner at Richmond Raceway. There's a lot to be looking forward to this week, and last year has to give you some natural momentum and some natural confidence as well. Kyle Busch knows how to get around that place, same as Brad Keselowski. A lot of these guys are way below the cut line. Like we've said, a lot of good drivers are missing the playoffs. A lot of these guys are capable of winning a lot. But I don't know, Tyler. There's so many good drivers, and the one that to me, he's coming in with a lot of momentum though. Brad Keselowski is somebody we're going to have to watch for, I think, Saturday. It seems like Keselowski outside of the road courses, his team is starting to click.
Yeah, I think RFK Racing as a whole is starting to click. And it looks like he had a good chance to win at Iowa too a couple weeks ago, and that didn't happen. I would say now that we're done with road courses and AJ Allmendinger kind of missed out his opportunity, one could argue that Brad probably is the driver with the best chance to steal one of these two races and take a playoff spot.
And do you remember 2018 where Keselowski, I believe he was in a playoff spot, but he hadn't won to this point in the year. And then the schedule went, it was Darlington, Indianapolis, and Las Vegas over that next three race stretch. And Keselowski won all three races. Now, of course, these are different tracks, but Keselowski knows how to get it done at Richmond. He's won at Daytona before. He knows how to get it done at these next couple of weeks. I think RFK Racing's got to be feeling really, really good. But then it comes at the cost of one of your guys. As a team owner, as a driver, whatever, you're out for yourself. You are trying to win for you. You are trying to win for your team. But the team owner side of it, that's going to be very bittersweet for Keselowski, knowing he's knocking out one of his guys potentially, or both, if either of them cannot win. If Preece and Buscher do not win, but a Keselowski win happens on Saturday night, imagine the chaos and turmoil internally that sets for everybody because you have winners and you have big losers as well.
Yeah. And then another thing to bring up here, Dom, um, on all this when it comes to the playoff situation with these drivers, we got to talk about Kyle Busch. I know it's been a long time since he's been back in victory lane. We saw him come very close last year in these final races. And I feel like that you almost get a different Kyle Busch, a motivated Kyle Busch that's going to take chances, push the car to the limit. If Kyle Busch is capable of winning, if they give him a good enough car, he will find a way to get to victory lane in one of these two races. I think it comes down to the team and what they give him. I don't think it comes down to Kyle Busch in either one of these races. I think he's going to lay it all out there.
Absolutely. And Kyle Busch, is going to give it his best effort. He finished second at Darlington and finished second at Daytona in those last two races last year. Could have easily won those, or shouldn't say easily, but came very close to being able to get that done. We know Kyle Busch knows how to still drive a race car. Is there maybe a decline going on? It's hard to say because of the equipment he's in. It's not Joe Gibbs racing equipment, but Kyle Busch isn't getting any younger either in the same regards to that, Tyler. But a lot of good guys, a lot of drivers that are going to miss the playoffs that are capable of winning is what's on the table, and that's laid out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, certainly. Let's look ahead now to this weekend's race at Richmond. Dom, Richmond got a lot of history when it comes to the playoff picture, as it used to be the last race before the playoffs begun. There was the infamous Jeremy Mayfield moment, which became a thing in itself. Everybody was saying, "Hey, can you pull a Mayfield? Can you win and get in?" And that was before even the current system of when you get in the playoff was put into place. And you know, we've seen some great racing there over the years. What do you think of when you think of Richmond?
I think of that 2004 wild chase for the cup race where you had all of these guys, I think as far back as 15th or 16th in points, they could have pointed their way in. Mayfield was 14th in points entering that race. Goes out and wins. Kurt Busch had a fuel issue or a tire issue with the few laps to go. Mayfield inherited the lead, wins the race, advances into the 2004 NASCAR playoffs at that time. That set the stage, I think, for this new era that got ushered in with this playoff format that we've now had for a generation or more than a generation of racing in NASCAR. And Richmond, I always think fall time, late summer, early fall, great racing that's going to happen, good short track racing. We've seen good races in the next gen car. We've talked highly on this show about the racing we have seen at Richmond over the years in this vehicle. I hope Saturday night plays out that way too. We love short track racing under the lights. We haven't got a lot of Saturday night races like we had 20 years ago on the schedule. So it's a really cool gem to be able to have this back to back race weekends.
Um, and then you look at just some parity, Dom. We've seen uh, at Richmond a lot of different race winners as of late at that track.
Yeah, Chris Buescher comes to mind from a couple of years ago. Austin Dillon, of course, the option tire and how that all played out last year. That's not on the table this year, but Richmond has set the scene over the years. Fuel mileage races, chaotic finishes, a lot of nostalgia with this racetrack. Because Tyler, this racetrack has been a part of the NASCAR schedule for a long, long time. You've had 136 races at the track, so that dates back into the 50s. That Richmond's been on the schedule. There's been great racing over the year and over the years, and this is the first time in a long time that Richmond's only on the schedule once because it typically has the two race dates. So feeling like this Saturday night's going to be a little extra special.
Yeah, five different winners in the last five races at Richmond.
Man, you said it right there. There's a lot of potential for a sixth different winner to be able to add their name to that list, and Richmond provides that opportunity. You get a late race caution, and you know how the tire fall off is at Richmond. You get a lot of people that are going to come in pit or stay out or do the two tire call. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. All right, Dom, let's get to the news and notes this week. Where do we want to start?
Well, let's start with victory lane. Of course, the fall that was seen all around the world. Connor Zilisch celebrated his NASCAR Xfinity Series victory in Watkins Glen, but that was short-lived with his fall from and tumble from his car on Saturday. He was transported to the infield care center and then to a local hospital where it was discovered that he had broken his collarbone. He underwent surgery on Tuesday, August 12th, had some screws and I believe a plate put in to fix that. At the time of this taping, there is no timetable on his return. Fortunately, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, in his favor, will not race this weekend at Richmond with just the trucks and the Cup Series tackling the Virginia short track. So the next race for the Xfinity Series will be Daytona in a couple weeks. But the car did get withdrawn from the Cup Series. Zilisch was expected to run the Team Red Bull number 87 Trackhouse racing vehicle, and that vehicle was withdrawn from the event. But Tyler, that fall looked a lot more serious initially and made a lot of people wonder and question if he was okay. You and I were going back and forth this weekend. And man, it was a very very tough thing to watch once you knew how serious it was. But glad he's okay. Glad to know that he is on the road to recovery. He's even making jokes about it on social media. He's got a good attitude, I think, about it, more so than probably most people would have. But the timetable, the racing side of it, now that all the serious stuff is out of the way, what do these days and weeks look like? And are we already looking at possible replacements for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah. So what I would think, he's been talking to SVG, and SVG said he broke his collarbone at one point, and he was out of the car a week, and then came back. And so he is going to try to do everything he can to get back in the car as quickly as possible. What I would expect, because they don't want, to lose out on potential points or be risking, needing a waiver or something like that. I could see another scenario where maybe he starts Daytona and then depending on his pain level, potentially they swap out the car at a pit stop or something. I could see that being a possibility too.
Which would make sense. You want somebody to earn their points, and he's in the thick of the regular season championship battle with Justin Allgaier, and that battle's very close itself. Who do you pull to replace? Do you have a big pool of drivers? Because you can't pull Cup guys now. With this being this late in the season, my understanding is there's no Cup guys allowed at the Daytona race.
Yeah. I don't know who it is that you get necessarily. Um, I would guess it would have to be a truck series driver or somebody that's retired um, to jump in potentially. Uh, it doesn't seem like an obvious choice out there, but I would imagine they'll have somebody on standby and they'll try to give Zilich every effort to complete the race that he can. I know that he was saying when he had surgery that he was in a lot of pain. So we'll see what his recovery process is like. But it's not ideal, but it could have been a lot worse. What else we got?
Looking ahead to this race weekend, the Xfinity Series is off, but the NASCAR Cup Series and NASCAR Truck Series tackle Richmond Raceway. Tyler, we know you're a gambling man. We know you're a guessing man. Who's the odds-on favorite?
I'm going to go Denny Hamlin. It's his home track. He's the best right now at these, you know, short tracks and whatnot. I would think that he's probably the favorite, probably somewhere around. I'll go. I'll go 450.
Okay, close. Denny Hamlin is the odds-on favorite at plus 350 to win the Cookout
350.
400. Yeah, very, very short odds. When you look at they typically short tracks we've seen what plus five, 600. Odds makers must be really feeling confident about that Joe Gibbs racing machine this Saturday night. Before a lap has been turned on the racetrack, other odds include Christopher Bell at plus 400, Kyle Larson at plus 850, William Byron at plus 950, and Joey Logano at plus 1,000 running out your top five. Then you got Chase Briscoe and Chase Elliott sharing plus 1,200 each, Ryan Blaney at plus 1,500, Brad Keselowski, who's been winless in 2025 at plus 1,600, and Tyler Reddick at plus 2,200, who's never really been one that we think of on the short tracks. Maybe some decent odds there. And as you go through the rest of the field, Josh Berry, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain plus 2,500. At plus 3,000 includes Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon, Ryan Preece and Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman plus 3,300, Carson Hocevar at plus 3,800, Ty Gibbs plus 5,000. And the list goes on and on. Your longest shot to win would be Cody Ware at plus 250,000 or 2,500 to 1.
I think my pick has got to be Denny. The way that he's running at these tracks, he knows Richmond as well as anybody. Denny's got to be the guy, and he's tied for the series lead and wins there with SVG with four. If you're Denny, it's interesting when we look at these drivers in their position, Dom. There's certain guys going for stage points, and there's certain guys that are in position just to go for wins. If you're Denny the next 2 weeks, you really got nothing to lose. You either win, it's win or you have nothing to lose essentially. So
Yeah.
I think for him, he's not worried about stage points into that. He's just trying to get victory lane. I expect a very aggressive drive from Denny here.
Yeah, you might as well. You have two free shots here to earn some more playoff points and maybe try to move a little bit more up on the playoff grid. Because remember, too, you get more playoff points the higher you finish up in points. If he finishes third, he's going to collect 8 more playoff points, which would put him at 30 when they reseed. But second place, if he's able to catch Chase Elliott over the next couple races, would be 10 points. I do think that regular season championship is now a little out of reach after what happened at Watkins Glen. But nonetheless, gosh, Tyler, even if he finishes seventh in points, he's still going to end up with 4 more playoff points. But here's a chance to go out and freebies and R&D, whatever you want to call the next couple of weeks, an opportunity to go out and just try to give yourself a little more padding. But before we move on from it, too, because I was curious what Caesar Sportsbook was showing for top 10 finishes, SVG 12 to 1 or plus 1,200 to score a top 10 finish towards the bottom of that list. How would you feel about a top 10 bet on SVG at Richmond?
I wouldn't feel great about it, but I wouldn't completely rule it out because, as we've mentioned, Dom, it isn't just the driver, it is the car. They are giving him some good stuff. And Trackhouse as a whole right now is running as good as they've ever run. So for me, with him getting more comfortable in that race car and with Trackhouse putting it the performance they put together, the pit stops have been so clean. I would think just that in itself has got to be momentum for SVG.
It absolutely has. And if there's a rain out metric, like we saw a few weeks back, I think it was at Dover, the week after he'd won at one of the road courses, maybe it was Sonoma to Dover was the schedule. And he ended up starting really high, like it's like the top 10. We saw him run well at North Wilkesboro. I think a lot of people forget. And of course, that's not a points race, but in the open, he led a bunch of laps by a matter of starting up front. So a good qualifying run or a good starting spot up front could lead to success on Saturday night.
Yeah, who's your pick for Saturday night?
Yeah, I've been kind of going back and forth with that. Not sure on what an outright pick would be, but leaning towards a Denny Hamlin victory on Sunday. Get that 59th career win, score 5 wins. There's just something different about Denny Hamlin this year. And we've talked about it a lot on the show over the last few years. where there's a fall off and it seems to go into the playoffs, but it just doesn't seem like that's there this year. And Denny's Racing is better than ever. Wasn't shaken after that Indianapolis wreck and qualifying. In fact, almost came back and won the race. There's a lot of good happening out of that 11 camp. You're feeling really good if because you've got your contract extension plus everything going off outside of the racetrack is all just noise that he knows how to compartmentalize. He thinks like a champion, he acts like a champion, he's racing like a champion.
Yeah. Yeah, he's doing everything right. He's absolutely doing everything right. You make a great point with that. Anything else before we move on?
I think it's everyone's favorite segment time there, Tyler.
Yeah, it's time for our mailbag segment. We ask you guys to submit questions to us each and every week. DavidStarPodcast@gmail.com, at Star Podcast and X and Facebook as well. And our first question in the inbox this week, it comes from Don. Don wants to know, guys, who is a retired driver that you would like to see come back and do a one-off race?
Hmm. Very good question. Given the current conditions of the vehicles and man, there's so many names you think of, but okay, he's already 3 years removed from a car, and I'm a little biased because he's been on the show before, but I'd like to see Greg Biffle in one of those RFK flagship cars. Like when we saw David Reagan run the Daytona 500, and it had been years since we'd seen him run a Cup race. It'd be really cool to see Greg Biffle get a chance like that for the Daytona 500 or a Talladega race. Like my mind goes to something like that, where maybe you have an equalizer of sorts. Is it too early to call Martin Truex Jr. out? I'd love to see him run a road course and see where that skill is. We always heard, and the joke was that he never worked out, but he was still as good and fiery and competitive and had the stamina as best as anybody who did work out. How would that hold true if you threw him in a Joe Gibbs Racing prepped Tricon racing vehicle at the Roval?
Yeah, and we saw him, of course, run the Daytona 500 in that 56 car. Here's one for you. I'm surprised we haven't seen this guy do a one-off yet. Is Kevin Harvick. I know he did the practice and qualifying for Kyle Larson at North Wilkesboro last year, but Kevin Harvick, there was a point in his career he was running so much Cup, so much Xfinity, even some truck races, kind of like what we think about Kyle Busch before Kyle Busch. I'm a bit surprised that we haven't seen Kevin Harvick, hop in a junior motorsports car or for another team just in an Xfinity race or something like that. I maybe when they run in San Diego and Bakersfield next, being a Bakersfield native, maybe he'll run that race or something. But I am a bit surprised we haven't seen Kevin back in a race car yet, even Xfinity or something.
If I remember correctly on his podcast after he'd retired from Cup racing and he was moving to the broadcast booth, he had mentioned that he'll never run another Cup race again. He was very certain of that, but that he was open to a one-off Xfinity or truck race if it made sense to do that. His son's coming up. I know he's still got a few years down the road before he's even age eligible to run something in trucks, but that would probably be what, 27, 28? Maybe we see something like that. And it made me think of another name with you bringing up Kevin Harvick because Harvick had mentioned, it shocked, I think, a lot of people. It shocked me when he said it, but maybe not so when you think about it, that one of the most raw talent teammates he ever had was Robbie Gordon. And that's a name I think of too. We have not seen him on a road course. I would have loved to see what Robbie could do in an X-Gen Cup vehicle on a road course. That driver did have a lot of talent. He had a lot of good business savvy too, starting his own team, his own energy drink company, and his own racing series. But a Robbie Gordon 2311 entry on a Watkins Glen road course like how Juan Montoya had last year would intrigue the heck out of me.
I'll give you the obvious one, Carl Edwards. And I feel like we talk about this once a year of sorts. Like, hey, is Carl ever going to hop back into a race car? And David said on this show before he thinks that Carl still is going to run full time at some point before it's all said and done. But Carl's made it known that he wasn't happy with NASCAR and the direction of the sport, and that's what kind of led him to early retirement. And we saw this year he came back with doing the TV stuff for Prime Video, and he was fantastic. And he was welcomed with open arms. The fans loved him there. He did great on TV. I think that was kind of the first step in the door, kind of reopening for Carl Edwards. I don't know if we'll ever see him full time again, but I do believe that we will see Carl back in a race car at some point. And if anything, he still has a ton of fans. He was extremely popular. We know about the backflip and all that. I I don't like to say that anybody owes anybody anything, but I do feel like Carl kind of owes his fans at least a send off, a proper send off or farewell, because they didn't get to say goodbye to Carl. And I think him even running like some part time Xfinity stuff or something would be a great way to kind of put a bow on his Hall of Fame career.
We're going on a little side quest here. Just let me know if I go too much. We got to land the airplane. But 2020, when everything happened during the pandemic and NASCAR's not racing for about 2 months, and Kyle Larson's relieved of his duties in the 42, Chip Ganassi, before Matt Kenseth had signed up for the car, I believe his first pick was Carl Edwards to come fill in. And Edwards had actually given it serious thought. He talked it over with his family, and he chose not to come back. Well, Kenseth filled in. He got the top 10. He ends up 10th in his first Darlington race back, but then only finished in the top 10 one more time, and it was second at Indy to Kevin Harvick. That was a disastrous 2020 in that 42 car. Matt Kenseth was asked to do a lot, finished 27th in points. But I look at that, Tyler, and I wonder if Carl Edwards would have been in that 42 car, how different would that stat line have looked? What would those 32 races in that car have produced? What do you think?
It's hard to say because he had never run that well, actually he had run that
He
car.
ran that generation of vehicle, but was 4 years removed.
Yeah, so I take that back. My mistake. It was 4 years removed. Your body changes a lot, your reflexes. It's hard to exactly say, but I think I can pretty confidently say that he would have done better than Matt Kenseth did because Matt really struggled, and that was the end of the road for Matt Kenseth there at that point. But you know, had Carl done that, we talk about things in the domino effect. What if Carl had success and won and made the playoff? Maybe he ends up staying in the 42 car, and then who knows what happens with Ross. Massey ends up staying around instead of selling the track house. I mean, there's a whole rabbit hole domino effect that you could be talking about had he taken that ride.
Yeah, winning fixes a lot. And I remember too from that season, Kenseth had alluded to the fact that he was open to coming back for another full-time year in 2021, but wasn't welcomed back into that car. And they made a way for Ross Chastain. But a win fixes a lot of things, as we know. A win at Indianapolis would have probably propelled Kenseth to a one more full-time year in that car. So much to speculate, so much we could go on with that, but that's where I think about on Carl Edwards and that what if in that 2020 season had he said yes to Chip Ganassi.
All right, next question. This comes from Dave. Dave wants to know, guys, if you could work one job on a NASCAR team, what would it be and why?
Can I pick driver, or we got to pick something besides the driver role?
I think he means besides driver.
Okay. If I knew more about under the hood, I would love to see what it's all about to be a crew chief. All the logistics, all of the people you got to manage. You're playing so many roles and different hats. I think it'd be a ton of fun to be atop the pit box and try to figure out field strategy. You know me, man. I'm a numbers guy. I feel like a lot of that could excel in a situation like that. How about you?
Um, I like the idea of an executive role. I like what, you know, Chad Canals does as competition director or Jeff Gordon as executive, vice
Sure.
chairman.
Yeah.
Those sound appealing to me, executive roles. But if I got to be on the crew, you know, crew chief would be cool. But I've always admired the gas man. I think the gas man getting that fuel in that car, there's a lot of pressure there because if you just spill a little bit, that can cause a fire or do all sorts of damage. And those fuel cans, they weigh about 92 pounds. That's not an easy job. I would have a lot of fun being the gas man.
Be a lot of fun. When we had Jen Calandria on the show about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I remember talking a lot about the passion and how hard she had worked to be able to do that and to be able to provide fuel to the different teams that she has serviced in all the different series. You can just hear the passion in her voice, how passionate she is about being able to work on a pit crew and in that capacity. And it does seem a lot of fun to be able to go over the wall. And yeah, maybe you're not running around the car and around the entire pit box, but you got to hold that gas can steady. And you got to make sure what you are doing has no margin of error. Like you said, you can cause a fire, you can cause a lot of damage with that gas can.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. Dom, before we get out of here, what's going on with you this week, man?
Yeah, it's going to be a nice little weekend at home here in New Mexico and get some nice little family time, of course, and get all of the nice rest and relaxation before start getting on the road for the playoffs. As you all know, I cover a lot of the races in person towards the end of the season, so ramping up for that to announce what races we'll be at, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. How about you?
So I am I'm going to be at home for most of this weekend here. And then we're going to start to put a bow on the summer of Jones. I'm going to go home, see the family in Tulsa for a few days, going up to Lawrence and Kansas City for the Kansas Fresno State opener. Haven't been to a Kansas football game in a couple of years, so it's the first game that they've had back since they renovated the stadium. So that'll be cool to see. And then get back to Dallas, and then I'm going to New York Labor Day weekend. So uh,
New
enjoying
York.
the kind of relaxing the next couple of days, and then we'll finish off the summer strong here in the coming weeks ahead. So that's kind of what's on my plate here.
And that's your second trip to New York, right? You've been before, if I remember correctly.
That's my second trip to New York. Should I tell the story how you screwed me over last time I went to New
Oh,
York?
please do. I love hearing it. Yeah, please do. I think this is worth another side quest.
Okay, yes, I'll try to land the plane.
I'll let you know if you're going too far off the runway.
Yes. So the first time I went to New York, Dominic and I were supposed to go get together and go to the Pocono race,
2019.
and yes, and it was my first trip ever to New York, and we had a friend of ours. I'll keep the friend's name out of it. I'll just throw Dom under the bus is all I'll do here. And Dom backs out. He can't go. And the friend of ours, uh, he just assumed I wasn't going because Dom wasn't going. Never asked me about it. And I'm literally in the terminal about to board the plane, and he tells me I don't have a place to stay. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? What am I supposed to do here?" And uh, Dom found me a Airbnb discount. I had never done Airbnb before at this point. This was my first time, and then met up with some people along the way and ended up having a good time and things worked out. But I'll give Dom credit. He made up for it. I went to Miami later that year for the championship race, and he got me a place to stay, got me covered. So uh, I've said about this about Dominic, and I've even told Grok this. Dominic's the guy, like he'll screw up from time to time, but he'll always do what he can to make up for it. And so that's why I've kept him around as my friend and my colleague and podcast co-host. That even with his screw ups, he finds a way to come back around and make it right.
As Tyler has said to my face and in front of my back, Dominic means well, and that goes a long way. I appreciate that.
Yes, he means well. Means well. And and that one wasn't, I would say it wasn't entirely your fault. It was partially your fault. But our other friend did screw me over too, who just assumed I wasn't going to stay there, whatever. But
Well,
nonetheless, no hard.
I can't really throw that friend of the bus too, Tyler, because I could have communicated better. And oh, so ironic. The journalism and communication people, they always joke that they are the worst at communicating. And that trip was a great example of me not doing a good job of communication.
Uh, Dominic, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Well, hey, I do what
One of
I
a kind.
can. And
He's
when
one
I
of a
can't
kind.
do it, I don't tell you until it's too late.
Yes. Yes. On that note, we'll put the checkered flag out in this edition of Let's Go Racing. Subscribe to the show. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Hit us up on social media on X, Facebook at Star Podcast, by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. This show, part of the Studio Soapbox Network. Check out the Jones Report, Coach Bill Knows podcast, and all podcast platforms. For Dominic Aragon, I am Tyler Jones saying so long. This has been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week.